Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I am your host, Tony, and this is the place where we talk about all things strange and unexpected in our reality. Today I have a co-host and a regular voice on our podcast, Anthony Hernandez. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
All right. And he's also got his own podcast. I'm going to put a plug because it's awesome. Family, Health, and Hustle. Check it out. Today is one of our random strangeness episodes. So this is where we will look at 3 or 4 different topics randomly and discuss them and share them with you. So as we start here, I just want to warm us up. Anthony, how's things going for you so far this year?
It's good. Busy, hanging out, enjoying life.
Yep.
Keeping an eye on any weird things going on, which
Yes.
There's always plenty of that happening.
It's true. And how about anything fun or exciting coming up this summer for you?
Well, we run a family business, a little dessert trailer, so we're just ramping up, and summer's game time for us. So where we live, it's cold like 8 months of the year. So for the warm 4 months, we're like, okay, let's do this. So anyway, just ramping things up, getting stuff ready for that. But other than that, just excited to have some warm weather.
Exactly. I know you crunch so much busyness in a few months that sometimes it's hard to see it, but good luck. I know it's going to be fun. You guys do a great job. And people,
Thanks.
if you're here in Utah, you got to check them out. Yummy Ice. They're all over the place.
That's right. YummyIce.com.
That's right. All right. Let's get right into it. Have you ever had to take a double look or a double take when you saw something, a person or some situation, where you looked at it and you thought, did I just see what I think I saw? Anything like that ever happened for you?
Yeah, I think when you said that, like, deja vu comes to my mind, but I don't think we're talking about that. Like, there's times when I see something and it's surprising and I can't believe that happened. Like, for example, a big one that probably a lot of people experience is, like, if you're driving and there's a big accident. Most of the time they clean that stuff up really quickly, but sometimes you catch a little bit of what happened. And one time I was driving through a busy intersection. There's a lot of traffic. There's a big accident that just happened, and just right off to the left of the intersection, in the middle of the intersection, was just a body. And I was driving by and I saw it on the side of my eye, looked over, and I was like, whoa, wait, what? What the heck? And cops around, and normally they cover that stuff up. But for me, that was a big moment where it was like, did I just see what I think I saw? And everyone else is being so casual about this. But
Yeah, because normally everybody's rubbernecking for anything.
yeah, exactly.
And something like that, probably they didn't see it. Otherwise, probably would have just been gridlock.
Yeah, it's just weird to have that. Just weird to have something like that just be there and no one rushing to try to, take care of it, essentially. So
Yeah.
I found out later it was a motorcycle accident. That person had unfortunately passed away. But he had been there for, like, they basically didn't move the deceased person from the scene for a couple hours, and couldn't figure out what it was. There were some rumors that it was some kind of that the individual had a Native American ethnicity and religion and belief, and so that there was something they were trying to bring in a religious leader to do something there. That was kind of the rumor that was going around as to why that had been, the person had been left there for so long, because the police were there, first responders were on scene, but they weren't really hiding it from anyone, and it was a very busy street. So I was like,
wow,
crazy to see. So I don't know ultimately why that happened, but that was the rumor.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, when I thought about this, nothing so sad as that, but still a little sad.
Hmm.
I remember I was younger, um, not sure what age, but I was pretty young, and I remember seeing a bunch of kids staring at somebody else. Like, they couldn't help but to look. They were kind of staring. I kind of felt bad for the person who was being stared at because I think they saw it. And they were just so astonished that they couldn't turn away. You know what I mean? And I think what they saw was one of the conditions that we're going to talk about today. So, today's discussion, we're going to start. The first topic is going to be about a condition that is really hard to look at, but at the same time, you almost have to look at it. And then when you look at it, you feel bad. So it's really interesting. It's a condition called Proteus Syndrome. Have you ever heard of Proteus Syndrome?
No, I have not.
This is a young man right here on the screen that has this condition. It's difficult. It's really difficult to see. And you can imagine young kids having a tough time trying to figure out what's going on with this person. And I think that's what I saw as a young kid. Few people were trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah, my son, I have a 6-year-old son, for those listening, obviously but for those listening, and he is now at a point where he's recognizing there's a couple special needs individuals in our neighborhood, and he'll stare. Some are more severe than the others as far as their disability, but he stares and he can't help but stare, and some of those sweet individuals are they have issues, essentially they have to wear some bibs or different things where they they're definitely special needs. And he's kind of sitting there pointing or looking and staring, and he's now asking those questions like, what's going on with them? And trying to have that conversation. So especially kids, it's natural to look at something and be like, whoa, I haven't seen that before.
Right. And this condition is definitely something that is really, really, you're going to notice it. And people take a double take and look back. Did I just see that? Because it's so disfiguring. Now, this Proteus syndrome, it's a rare genetic condition that causes excessive growth of your bones, skin, organs, and or tissues. The disease causes parts of your body to grow out of proportion with the rest of it. The growth is usually asymmetrical, meaning it affects the right or left side of your bodies differently. It's crazy. This is what a newborn, like a baby. Not a newborn, but a baby. Look at you know that this is something different when you see this.
Yeah, it almost looks like an altered picture, but what we're looking at on screen for those who are listening is it's a newborn, but I can't quite see there's some disfigurement with one of the arms. It's kind of like a large hand, and then the feet of the baby are very large and they almost look like baby hands. Like, how baby hands are really chunky, but very large. So
yeah, it's interesting and sad, really. I mean, these children, they don't show signs of this condition right at first, usually, but it starts to appear in the ages of 6 months to 18 months, and it rapidly starts to develop within the first 10 years of their life, and it gets very severe as they get older. So it's just a tough thing to look at. The next picture I have here is just what a hand looked like. And this is a hand, person with this condition. And those listening, the hand is severely disfigured. Thumb is 3-4 times bigger than a normal thumb, and a couple of the fingers. And it's something you're probably going to have to look at online. It's very difficult to describe. The differences in the physical appearance with Proteus also include neurological issues. people with Proteus also have an increased risk of developing blood clots and tumors. Because, as you can imagine, your blood vessels trying to work around this overgrowth of tissue, bone, and everything else, it's very tough. And then it causes problems in the blood vessels as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is this isolated to like, well, maybe I'll answer this here. This person looks like pretty normal, and then they looks like maybe there's something going on with their hand.
Yeah. Yeah, so in this case, this person we can't see his feet or anything. Looks like a young teenager, but you can definitely see the one arm and hand are massively big and deformed. And so it is possible to have this situation like this where half your body could be fine, and then one side of your body starts to just have these different overgrowths. Let's see here. The severity and locations of these various growths vary greatly, but typically the skull or one of or more of the limbs and soles of the feet is what gets affected most times.
What I think of when I see some of this stuff is that, the human body is just so perfectly balanced. Anytime we talk about this stuff, different diseases, conditions, everything in the human body is perfectly balanced, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And just one little imbalance of something can cause, a condition or something that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And it could be more than one thing, but I'm saying just the smallest imbalance of something could either cease for someone to live or to grow what we would consider normal, things like that. So it's just, it kind of makes you have more awe for the human anatomy.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Because there are little things that can happen, and then it's kind of a cascading effect sometimes. So, like I mentioned before, there is fear for some of these individuals to get a deep vein thrombosis, and the pulmonary embolisms and things like that, because the vessels also have malfunctions, their blood vessels. So could be a difficult situation, and oftentimes it's what causes the death of these individuals. This next picture is different. This is probably from waist up. This lady looks pretty normal, but it almost doesn't look real. From the waist down, it's just very exaggerated, very huge.
Yeah, large legs, huge feet.
Yeah. I mean, the feet and the shoes themselves are, for those who can't see this, look maybe 3 times bigger than a head. It's really huge.
Wow.
Only a few get this condition across the world. It's about 200 cases have been confirmed worldwide. And it's about 120 people really have the more extreme cases of this. Like we just saw a picture of a young man with an arm, but 120 out of the 200 are really extreme cases. I would consider this to be pretty extreme too. And the other thing that I read when I was doing some research is that they think there may be more of these people in certain countries that don't have the same medical opportunities, but it's just not getting diagnosed if it's not super severe.
Interesting.
Yeah. This next picture is actually, well, the one to the left is a condition. It's the same condition, but this is a person who's had some severe overgrowths in their face. I don't know really how this person can function. It's very difficult. The picture on the right, for those of you who've ever watched the movie The Elephant Man, it's a good movie. It's an older movie. It's also very sad. I think it's worth watching. And that's a picture of him. And he had a pretty severe case of this. He actually had to sleep inclined because he couldn't breathe well. And I think when he passed away, he wanted to have one normal night of sleeping flat, and he lost his life when he was, I think, in his 20s at the time. So
Crazy.
So his name was John Merrick, and like I said, he was known as the Elephant Man. Now, it's a very difficult condition, and I'm just including this here for people to realize that you can donate to the Proteus Syndrome Foundation if you want to help out there. It's a pretty difficult situation. Let's see here. Just a little bit of newer information. A team of doctors in Australia have trial tested a drug, rapamycin, in the treatment of a patient who has a mild case of this Proteus syndrome, and they have found it to be somewhat effective. So that's a really good story, or a really good situation.
Incredible.
Yeah.
When I say effective, though, are they thinking, like, does it reverse it?
I don't think it reverses it. Maybe just stops it. It's newer, and it's still being debated whether, how effective the treatment is, but it's showing something. So hopefully in the future we'll hear something positive come from that.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about these conditions sometimes for the audience, just to be aware that we live in a world where when we see things that we don't expect, it's tough to recognize. It's tough to really know how to handle it. And sometimes there are conditions, medical conditions, that they're not as clearly visible, but can affect people, and it's important to know that those things exist. So, well, our next topic is ghost towns. This one is an interesting story. It's in a place called Centralia, Pennsylvania, and this town was like any other town until the 1950s. People lived there, raised families, they attended the local churches, went to nearby schools, and each of those families in that town had hopes, dreams for the future. A lot of people sometimes never really leave their hometown, and so I'd imagine a number of these people thought they'd still be there until a mine fire changed everything for them in 1950. So this is the town. This is a picture here of the town in 1915. As you can see, there's Main Street, there's plenty of homes. There was definitely some activity in that town there. And so it was a coal region. And so, there was definitely some mining going on in that area. But it was a bustling little town for a short time. And then this is kind of what started seeping up out of the ground. So this is, before we go there though, let me just give you let me back up and give you some more history of this town. Founded in 1866, population around 1890 is where it peaked. They had about 2,800 people in this little town. And they had 2 theaters, 5 hotels, 7 churches, 27 salons. Boy, they like to drink over there. 1 bank, 1 post office, and 14 general grocery stores, all in that little area. I mean, it was more than just that one street, but that's down the main street there.
Yeah. So it was a busy town. Lots of people.
Yeah, it was busy. Yeah, a lot of people involved here. And by the mid-1900s, the town did start to decline, because mining and that sort of thing did drop off a little bit. But this is interesting. In 1950, the population was about 2,000 people. And, it was a close-knit town. People lived there, raised their families, like I mentioned before. But in May 27th, 1962, this is strange, the local firefighters, they ignited a fire in the landfill there in town, at the edge of town. And the goal was to clean it up and try to burn some of that junk out of there because they were going to have everything prepared for a big upcoming Memorial Day holiday. So they thought, hey, let's clean this stuff up, right? The thing they didn't realize is that the landfill sat on top of a strip mining pit. And as time went on, the fire, it kind of seeped into the pit, and there was a fire brewing in the mine underground. Now they did what they could to try to control it, but it still kept moving through the mine. And eventually the townspeople were affected because there was fumes and smoke and toxic stuff coming up into the houses, up into the streets. Basically, the whole town was dealing with this now.
I heard about this years ago. I hadn't remembered the details, but I had heard about it, that it's like basically all under the town is still on fire.
Exactly. It's still on fire today.
Some gas or something was in the mines apparently, right? And so it just lit, and still they can't put it out.
They can't, exactly. And so, along with what you're saying, early 1980s, 2 decades after the initial fire, they still were not able to do anything about it, and then they started to have to move people out. Carbon monoxide gas was starting to really seep into homes. There were sinkholes here and there where land would start to drop and sink. So it was pretty crazy. I mean, this is under part of a street here at the edge of town. You could see it was definitely causing some problems at ground level for the town.
Well, and it's not going to go out anytime soon. I don't know if you saw the statistic or like what they're projecting, but they're projecting that fire will continue to rage for like 250 years. I don't know if you saw that from that article that some of this information came from, but yeah, so there's no one's going to be living there anytime soon. The city or the state came in and condemned the entire city because of that.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they started having people leave. I think there was a big lawsuit that ensued, but they pretty much were able to get most people to leave. I think there were probably 6 or 8 either families or small groups of people that remained in town. But yeah, I mean, it's this chair here of a little park bench, it's empty.
Yeah.
There's nobody really doing anything there anymore.
I mean, honestly, probably wasn't very safe to build the whole city on top of a mine anyway. So, I mean, like if it was out on the outskirts of town, I'm sure it was, maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume like it would still probably cause issues. But the fact that stuff was seeping into homes and stuff like that, from, again, years ago when I initially heard about this, it was like, you know, there's veins of this mine that go underneath the town, and like, I mean, there's a whole thing. So I'm sure that probably wasn't the best anyway, to have tunnels and veins of this thing going all across underneath town. But obviously, now, the fire.
I was going to ask you, with any of the reading you did on it, do you know, did they build the town and then started mining under it, or was it the other way around? I don't remember.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was like a little mining town, so they probably built it in tandem. Okay. But I don't know. I honestly don't remember. I don't think I would address that specifically.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, like you had mentioned, is it's still going, and they are projecting it to still burn for who knows how long.
Yeah. I wonder if they let anyone in, because some places, like Chernobyl, they weren't. I think you can probably get tours or somehow sneak in now or whatever. I don't know if you're supposed to, but I've seen videos on YouTube and stuff of people doing that. Here, I wonder, if you wanted to drive through the town, could you even do that?
Yes, you can. I mean, it's still. This is what it looks like. This, you can see the picture. The town was there. It's a main road that still passes through there. It's just the buildings and structures on each side of the roads are They're just not there anymore.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not like quarantined in the way that you can't go there. It's just not safe for habitation, essentially. But I do believe there's still 2 or 3 or 4 people living in this town. And basically they were told, look, it's up to you, man. We've warned you. It's up to you what you want to do. But they were able to successfully get everybody else out of that town. So
interesting. Be difficult because you have all your stuff, so it's like you can't sell it. You can't. Some of these other ghost towns, I'm always fascinated when you see them because it's like their tables are set, there's dishes everywhere, and like they just up and left. And they're from the 1800s. Like the beds are made, the tables are there, and I'm sitting there thinking, you didn't take any of your stuff. This is a little different. I mean, I still expect houses to be empty, but like this would suck where it's like, your house, your property itself, there's no selling it, there's no getting anything from it. Like it is done.
Yeah. I do believe the state did give them something for those who they wouldn't leave to try to get them to go. But, it's usually never fair value, so it's interesting. Okay. Our next topic. Have you ever stood at the base of a skyscraper and just looked straight up? I know you were on a cruise recently, and I saw pictures, and you talked about how huge that ship was, and you were kind of at all just even looking up at the ship from below.
Oh yeah, incredible! It's incredible to think that we can build stuff like that. Again, specifically the cruise was. I mean, that is a skyscraper sitting there, and it's 17 decks. That's 17 stories. So it's not as big as some other ones, obviously, but to stand there and look up and be like, wow, what has to go into this to make it float and to be able to do everything we can do. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. Well, I bring that up. I also remember when I was younger, I stood at the foot of the World Trade Centers looking straight up, and it was I just remember getting dizzy just looking up because it just was straight up forever. And it's amazing, those structures, right? Like those skyscrapers, it doesn't have to be, one of the tallest in the world, but even, the ship that you talked about, how just amazing it is to look up and how massive that is. And there's so many skyscrapers and structures like that in all the cities around the country and the world that it's interesting when there is a fail, like a real mistake that causes trouble for a structure or a building that's built. I don't know about you, but I look at buildings when I go in them, and I look at any of the tall buildings in cities I've gone in. I don't question or even think about like the safety. I just assume and expect that it's all safe, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I'm the same way. I don't look at safety. I mean, I don't like to go in tall buildings anyway. But if I do, I'm thinking you just it's blind trust. You're just like, they got it. They figured it out.
So this building, the AON Center, is the third, or was, I don't know if it still is, the third tallest building in Chicago. It was completed in 1973 and was originally named the Standard Oil Building. When it was completed, the building was a visual wonder, and mostly because they sheathed or covered the outside of the building in an Italian, I think it's called a Carrara marble, something very unique and different, had a very vibrant appearance to it. And by everybody who looked at it, they thought the building looked great. It was definitely an attractive building, and people, they were very proud of this building when they made it. But it's interesting because the exterior, even though it was very nice, it came at a high price. The marble was much thinner than normal building materials that clad the outside of these types of buildings. And in 1974, one of the slabs detached from the building and crashed into the roof of a neighboring building. And so an investigation revealed that this material really wasn't suitable in this environment, Chicago. Chicago, it's kind of different, very windy, it's very hot, very cold, especially those buildings, right? And so I think it was meant to be used in parts of Italy, and there it worked well, but not so much here. So let's take a minute and watch a short clip that tells us a little bit about this situation.
Level to the top, 83 stories above. In all, it took 43,000 panels, each weighing as much as a motorcycle. In 1973, when Big Stan opened its doors for business, it was the tallest marble-covered building in the world. But just a decade later, the shine began to fade. Routine inspections revealed the slick marble coat was cracking and in danger of crashing down to the ground. This is where restoration specialist Robert Gerskis came in. He captured this unique footage as he assessed the damage.
We're up there on the side of the building. We are shocked at the condition of the marble.
The fear was that the sheets of rock, as heavy as 2 men, could have fallen from 80 stories up.
As early as the construction phase, there were reports that the marble was not secure.
It's reported that on Christmas Day in 1973, one of the slabs fell from Big Stan, and it pierced the roof of the neighboring office. The fact that it happened on a public holiday might have been a blessing in disguise.
1992, after nearly 4 years, the biggest renovation on one of the tallest buildings in the world was finally complete.
Replacing the thousands and thousands of panels is said to have cost $80 million, nearly half the original construction cost. But nearly 30 years later, the cladding is still going strong.
While the drastic solution was expensive, it was a huge success. And since Big Stan's original high-class cladding catastrophe, architects and engineers no longer use Carrara marble for external coverings anywhere in the U.S.
Whoa, what do you think of that? I mean, that's crazy, huh? I mean, those panels, like as heavy as a motorcycle or whatever it was that they said, that would be a serious problem if it landed on the streets below and the people walking around. That's scary.
It probably happens more often than we think. I mean, if you think about all the rules and regulations when it comes to construction, when it comes to, whatever it is, cruise ships, mortgages, restaurant, whatever, it's usually because someone, got hurt or died or tried to sue someone, or like all of those rules stemmed from something. And so, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if stuff like this happened more often. Obviously, this is more drastic because it was more noticeable, but
yeah,
I bet you there's lots of cases of stuff like this happening where like little pieces of things fall off or whatever, and you just got to pray that no one's below it.
Right, exactly. It's crazy. All right, well, but they do have it fixed now, and it's functioning, so good for them. Good for the people below as well, right? All right, well, let's hop on to our last little section here today. This section is bizarre government expenditures, or the different things the government has spent money on. That is really odd, really strange. So if I were to say to you, sex, drugs, and what would you think next?
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll, right? Well, no. The government spent money on sex, drugs, and quails. The government spent at least $518,000 in 2018 on federal grants to study how cocaine affects the sexual behavior of Japanese quails. Can you believe it?
Just using the using the taxpayers' money just to, just as best as they can.
Yeah, yeah. And, when people started, I don't think it's well known, but there's been some inquiries on this, and they defended it by saying, well, we're trying to look at how cocaine abuse affects risky sexual behaviors in humans, and it's just easier to do with quails than humans. So this is, they feel like they can get this kind of study done in the lab setting, but hey, $518,000.
Oh, that's
amazing.
Not bad. I thought they were going to say 518 million or like a billion. $500,000, that's, they printed that in the last couple seconds.
True, exactly. All right, one more. Now, if they were to spend money to study school kids fighting and why it happens, would you think that's worth spending money on?
Probably. If like bullying and stuff like that, I think that might be something. I don't know if the school kids themselves are worth studying, but maybe the environment that they've been brought up in or that they live in. That
Well, don't worry. It doesn't make that much sense. They're not studying school kids. They're studying hamsters.
Why hamsters?
Hamster fightings. Yeah, they want to know. So, for more than 20 years, Northwestern University researchers received National Institutes of Health money to watch hamsters fight. They reportedly received more than $3 million over the course of the project, with $306,000 in just 2015 alone. Some of those experiments involved injecting hamsters with steroids and putting another hamster in the cage to see if the drugged rodent was more aggressive when protecting their territory.
It's
Crazy.
funny. It's funny and it's crazy. $3 million. It's crazy, but at the same time, like, so much of our modern medicine and technology comes by accident, right? It was like things that people were putting money into, and they're like, oh, this does this. That's interesting. You know what I mean? Like,
maybe that's what they're thinking.
The little blue pill, Viagra, I think started as like something else, like something totally different, and they're like, this is weird. All the people we're testing this on they have an interesting reaction. Maybe we have something here.
Yeah.
And but it was way different than what it was intended for. So who knows? Maybe hamsters fighting will lead to interstellar travel. I don't know.
Maybe. But don't worry, right? Because the experiments have stopped.
Oh, okay, good.
Animal activists did find out about this, and they put severe pressure on the program, and it's been halted.
Okay.
So
I don't know if that's the worst thing
fighting.
the government's been doing to animals is seeing if they'll fight, or seeing if they get a little aggressive. But I'm glad it stopped.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Anthony, that's our episode today. What did you like best about these 3 or 4 topics we talked about? Anyone stand out to you?
I'm a big fan of the ghost towns. Like I said, not the Pennsylvania one that we talked about is interesting. It's an interesting phenomenon with the mind, but I'm really interested in ghost towns in general, and how people just pick up and leave. And one thing, as we were kind of thinking, or you'd shared with me what the topic was going to be, and I was thinking about it, looking up a few things. I hadn't known that we were going to talk necessarily in depth about the Pennsylvania one, but I was really fascinated that times have really changed. When you go to these ghost towns, and like I said, people just up and left. They left their dishes, their dining room tables set for dinner. I don't understand why someone would just up and leave. But
that's as strange as it being deserted in the first place. Right?
Yeah, and that is so common. People leave their car out front. Like some of these towns that had issues when the freeway was built, like off Route 66. Some of those places, like, they left their cars out front, their Chevys. And it's like, why? Why would you leave Why would you leave your grocery store but leave all the groceries and everything inside? Why not try to take that and do something with it? So that's a part, that's really fascinating. And then the other fascinating part to me is that it's just a different time, because there used to be a time where you just owned your stuff, right? You built a house, you owned it. You wanted to leave it, you could leave it. And we don't live in that time anymore. In fact, it's really hard to comprehend that. Like if I just left my house, someone would come and claim it. The bank would come and claim it or something, and maybe out in little towns that doesn't happen as much, like if it's out in the middle of nowhere, but it's just weird to me. It's that a whole town would up and just leave property and different things like that, because I just don't think that would happen today. I think we just live in a different time economically, where unfortunately we have become more slaves to money and to things. Yeah. And so I think that's why I don't comprehend that happening. But I think back then it was, if you wanted to move, you just left. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's still weird to me. I'd still want to take my stuff.
It is. And for me, I really liked the AON building for this one reason. I think we too often fail to recognize the dangers around us. We trust too much the structures, infrastructure, really anything, government, anybody. We trust a lot of things, and if we're not careful, we can get burned. So I just, maybe we'll look up when we walk near these tall buildings in the future. I don't know how well you can walk down the street like that, but it makes you wonder when you should, or do you just accept the fact that something might come crashing down on your head? I don't know. So it's interesting to me. Well, okay, it's been fun. Thanks for being on, Anthony. Yeah. All of you out there, thanks for listening with us today and enjoying our Random Strangeness episode. I just want to say as we wrap up today, remember, there's a lot of strange and unexpected out there. So keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. Until next time, stay safe.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.